Welcome, new and old friends. My name is 242, and tonight, 42 got us one story this spooky, scary Sunday. Remember, if you want to help, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with anyone who might enjoy it. Now, turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. "Watch your language, young lady," my mother scolded sharply. It wasn't until our formerly docile undead slaves turned on her that she realized my mispronunciated words in our necromancy ritual had been deliberate. Has anyone else living around London, Ontario heard a low humming noise in the early mornings? By Head of Spectre. Has anyone else living around London, Ontario heard a low humming noise in the early mornings? Or is it just me? I've been hearing it every morning for the past few days. On the account of COVID, I've been at home doing online learning instead of going to school. Honestly, I don't mind it because I get to sleep in a bit more. Ever since that noise started though, it's been waking me up. It starts at around 6 every morning. My mom usually out the door by 5. She works an early shift as a nurse, so her hours are always a little wonky. I've never really been a light sleeper, but something about this sound is just impossible to sleep through. It's not all that loud, but it just doesn't seem to end. It's hard to properly describe. It's almost like a fan buzzing or the distant sound of someone using a saw, although I can't say it's exactly the same either. I'm sure that it's been coming from the space behind my house. Although if you knew where I lived, you say that was really a vague direction. My mom and I live out in the edge of London. Our house is on the more rural streets. We don't have any close neighbors, and our backyard runs into an empty field that eventually becomes a forest. It's a little lonely out here sometimes, sure, but it's home, and it's not like we're completely off the grid or anything. Anyway, back to the hum. Like I said before, it starts around 6 and carries on till around noon. That's when everything goes quiet, and I say noon only as an approximation. Once it went on till 4. I had to put up with that noise the entire day, and believe me when I say that it was giving me a headache, and I'm not really someone who gets headaches. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Chase, it's probably just construction or logging or something stupid and mundane. That's what I initially thought too. But back at the place where me and my mom used to live, we had this one neighbor who had a thing about DIY home repairs, and every weekend he'd be out in his garage messing around with his power tools. I know what a saw sounds like, and this wasn't a saw. It certainly sounded like some sort of machine, but it wasn't a saw. Besides, like I said before, there's nothing behind my house. Just a field and empty forest. Not a thin line of trees to shield us from the highway or something. I'm talking about bona fide Canadian wilderness. I looked it up on Google Maps. There is nothing out there. So, like 2 or 3 days ago, after having to tolerate the noise for a few days already, I kind of started wondering what was going on. I mean, sure, maybe there was some simple, mundane explanation, but this really was getting on my nerves, and it was distracting. I thought that maybe it might not be a bad idea to go and have a little look. If nothing else, maybe if I figured out what was making that noise, I might be able to figure out how long I'd have to deal with it. I swear, I wasn't playing anything reckless. I'm not that kind of guy. But after almost a week of this shit, I was a little annoyed. So I did what made sense. I faked some internet issue at home, asked a friend to cover for me, and pulled a Ferris Bueller. I figured I wouldn't be gone for more than an hour or so. Then I could just chill and play video games for the rest of the day. Sure enough, just around 6 a.m., the hum started up again and it woke me up. Mom had already left for work, so I was free to investigate at my leisure. I don't think I've ever moved so quickly to get showered and dressed since the lockdown had started, but this was important. I usually wasn't out of the house by 7, but this was a special exception. I wanted to find out the source of the noise as soon as possible. I trudged through the tall grass of the field, right up to the edge of the woods and past the tree line. I hadn't actually gone that far before, namely because my mom would have lost her shit. She's overprotective like that. But I really don't think there's anything out there to worry about aside from a few squirrels and chipmunks. I don't really view any animal that Snow White can convince to clean her house as all that threatening. The woods were mostly quiet, save for the hum. I could tell it was getting louder as I got closer, but not by much. It dawned on me at some point, after I'd been walking for what felt like half an hour, that maybe the noise was both really loud and really far away. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, though. What could possibly be that loud? That question just made me all the more curious, and I kept walking. It was about 7:37 by the time I started wondering just how long I'd been out here. I say it didn't feel like I'd been walking for the better part of an hour, but it absolutely did. Just how far away was this thing? The hum was still getting louder, sure, but it wasn't sounding all that close. Part of me was starting to wonder if all of this was actually worth it, or if I was just wasting my time. The patch of woods I was walking through wasn't exactly a national park or anything. Sooner or later, I'd probably come out the other side and stumble onto some back road, and I really didn't want to get lost. I felt like I could at least find my way back from where I already was. Almost on cue, the hum stopped suddenly and the woods around me went dead silent. I stood still, staring off at the direction of the hum had been coming from and just a bit confused. It had never stopped this early before. That was weird. Without the sound, I was hesitant to keep moving forward. Sure, it wasn't moving, but I didn't want to start wandering blindly. Even if the patch of forest wasn't very big, I really didn't want to risk getting lost and ending up coming out somewhere that wasn't right outside my backyard. I can't say I was happy about it. I was really hoping to get some answers, but I turned around to head home. That's when things started to get weird. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. Movement. Something in one of those trees above me. The leaves rustled, and instinctively I looked up, but I didn't see anything except a branch shaking. It took me a moment before I noticed that similar branches on another tree were also shaking, as if something had been perched on there a moment ago and had suddenly leaped off. Whatever it was, though, I didn't see any sign of it. I looked around, anxiety quickly starting to take root in me, and I told myself that I probably just startled some birds. That was the logical response, right? How big were those birds if the branches had been shaking like that, though? Whatever it was gone now, and I didn't see the point in dwelling on it. Take one last look up above, and I started back the way I came. The walk back always feels faster, in my opinion, but this time it felt like it took twice as long. Maybe it was just in my head? No. I'm sure it was just in my head, but every now and then I caught myself looking back and wondering if I wasn't alone. You know what I'm talking about, right? That uncomfortable feeling of being watched? I was sure there was some set of eyes on me, but, well, if something could see me, I should have been able to see it, right? The hum started up again about an hour after I made it home. I almost considered going out again to see if I could actually find the source this time, but something in my gut told me it would stop before I got there. I don't know, call it weird suspicion, but I could have sworn that my little trip into the woods had something to do with it stopping. As if something out there didn't want to be disturbed. A little after lunch, I headed out onto the back porch to take a look at the woods. Something had felt off about them ever since I gotten home. I know it sounds paranoid. I know it does, but I felt sure that something was in the trees watching me. Maybe it was just my imagination. It was hard to be sure from a distance, but I'm even sure I saw one of the branches bent as if something I couldn't see was sitting on it. Now, that's overthinking it, right? That just had to be paranoia. I probably just gotten spooked by the woods and now my mind was just fucking with me. That would be a logical explanation, right? I didn't get much sleep that night. Sure, the hum had stopped before my mom had gotten home, but that uncomfortable feeling that something out there didn't want me poking around wouldn't leave me. No amount of reasoning could shake that uncomfortable feeling in my gut, and I hated it. The worst part was, I knew that the hum would start up again in the morning, like it always did, and I didn't know what it was or why I was hearing it. I think I already knew by the time that exhaustion put me to sleep that I'd be ditching class again to go out and find it, and this time, even if it stopped, I'd keep looking. Now, it wasn't just about the noise. Now, it was about proving to myself that there was nothing out there. Maybe that was a mistake. The routine the next morning was the same as it had been the day before. As soon as the hum woke me up, I got ready to go out and look for it. I'm sure it was just my imagination, but walking out into the woods the second time felt different. It's hard to describe properly, but the first way I could do it is to say it felt like I was dragging stones behind me. With every step, there was a feeling that I shouldn't be doing this. I looked up high, up at the branches as I got closer, looking up for some signs that something was perched there and watching me. I saw nothing, and oddly enough, that didn't comfort me. I know it just had to be a mind. It had to be. Crossing the tree line the second time felt wrong. When I was really young, my mom used to go to this massage therapist. His office was attached to his house, and I used to creep through the doorway that connected his waiting room with his foyer and wander around his empty house while he worked. Entering the forest felt exactly the same as walking into that man's house. I felt like I was trespassing, sneaking into a place where I don't belong. Although one key difference is that I didn't feel alone. Not by a long shot. Every now and then, I heard the rustling of the leaves from above me. Sometimes it was accompanied by squeaks of birds. Sometimes I saw the black shape of a squirrel scrambling down the trunk. Other times I saw nothing at all. Every step forward took me more and more effort. I can't describe how badly I wanted to turn back, but I didn't. No. Dumbass that I was, I kept on walking. The hum stopped about 10 minutes after I crossed the tree line, and the moment it was placed with empty silence, I felt goose flesh rise on my skin. I think it was all the confirmation I needed that my very presence has caused whoever was causing it to stop what they were doing. But then, how did they know I was looking for them again? I looked back up to the trees and saw nothing out of place, but I still felt watched. No. I knew that I was being watched, that was the only logical way to explain it. How else would they know I'm coming for them unless they somehow had eyes on me? I took another step forward, willing myself to go on despite knowing that I needed to turn back. I already knew that what I was doing was a mistake, but I was still dumb enough to continue to do it anyway. The next sound that I heard wasn't the hum, but it was similar. It came on suddenly, a long, droning sound like bad tinnitus. It came on suddenly enough that I couldn't tell exactly where it started, but by the time I felt the first pangs of the coming headache, I absolutely noticed it. It felt like it started in my ears, a pain that started as something faint but quickly grew into something head-splitting. My stomach churned uncomfortably, and it became a losing battle keeping my breakfast in my stomach. Only a few minutes after the headache came on, I felt dizzy and disorientated. My legs started to fail beneath me, and I crashed against a nearby tree, only barely bracing myself before finally puking. My stomach wrenched violently and painfully. My vision blurred, but one thing I could see clearly through the dirt was the blood. I could taste it too, a strong, coppery taste mixed with the taste of my own stomach acids. I could feel the blood trickling down my nose, and then nothing. I don't even remember hitting the ground. Everything that happened next is hazy. The memories feel more like strange dreams, and even now, I'm not entirely sure they actually happened. Or, if they did, I'm still not sure if what I saw was real or not. I don't remember feeling any pain, that much I know for sure, but I remember seeing the gray sky above me and the shapes of branches reaching upwards. I stared up for a bit before realizing I was probably on my back. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement, a grayish figure whose shape was hard to make out. I could hear noises, but they seemed distant and far away. I can't describe them. I could barely even hear them. I remember moving my head slightly and feeling something pushed down abruptly. Something spoke, but I couldn't make out the words. From the corner of my eye, I spotted something on the ground and tried to focus on it. It looked like a rock, but no, it had something dark and fuzzy on it. It looked kind of like my hair, actually. I remember reaching out for it and touching it. Whatever it was soft and it felt like hair. I picked it up and noticed it was light and hollow. Slowly I turned it to see what was on the inside. All I saw was a yellowish concave surface with flecks of red. A hand suddenly rested on mine, forcing me to drop the rock that I held. My eyes tried to focus on it, but there must have been a mistake. The hand looked wrong. It was clad in cold, metallic, silvery material and only had 3 fingers. I traced the arm up to its surface and was greeted by a cold, faceless visor that stared down at me. I could see my own reflection in it, my own face, slack-jawed with half-lit eyes. But above my forehead, I'm not sure I recognized anything. There was just this reddish pink that I didn't recognize at first. I could see needles jolting out of whatever it was and three-fingered hands doing something. Something. What was it? I remember watching them work for a moment before the first and only clear thought I had crossed my mind. Was that my brain? Jesus Christ, was I looking at my own brain? I could feel my heart begin to race as panic set in. I tried to pull away. I tried to lift my head, but several pairs of sturdy hands held me down. They didn't stop me from seeing what had become of my body, though. My shirt had been pulled up and the skin on my chest was pulled back. I could see shapes and flesh that I never should have been able to see. I could see the swell of my own lungs and the beat of my own heart. I could see them. I remember screaming and then back to nothing. I woke up on the ground in the middle of the woods about 3 hours after I left home. I think it goes without saying that the first thing I did was feel around the top of my head. No exposed brain, just the top of my skull, right where it belongs. I lifted my shirt only to see my own chest, not my exposed organs, and that was enough for me. I didn't stick around after that. I thought I had gone deeper into the woods, but my home was just within view when I stood up, and I sprinted back there as fast as my legs could fucking carry me. That was 3 days ago, and I haven't heard the hum since. Every morning, there's been nothing but silence. It's like it was never even there to begin with, but even if it's gone now, I haven't forgotten about it. Whatever it was, I know it was out there, and I may never figure out just what it was. I noticed a scar on my scalp yesterday while I was washing my hair. It's faint. I can only barely feel it with my fingertips, but it's there. I can feel it looping around my skull in the place where I'm sure it had been taken off. It's not the only scar I found either. There's a Y incision on my chest, like what you see on someone who got autopsied. It's hard to see with the naked eye. When I tried to look at it in the mirror, I really only saw a faint white line of scar tissue, but I can feel it when I touch it. A little bump in my skin. Maybe it'll go away with time. I don't know. I hope it does. I don't want to remember what it felt like to be opened up. I know it sounds stupid, but part of me wants to go back into those woods again. I think whatever is out there is gone now, but maybe if I look hard enough, I'll find something. I don't know what, but something. I haven't worked up the courage to go out there again, though. Maybe whatever was out there, whoever was out there, has moved to a new location where they won't be disturbed. Or maybe they just found a way to do whatever they were doing in a quieter way. I'm not sure I want to try my luck by disturbing them again, though. I read an article about sonic weapons once, high-tech military stuff. I got to thinking about that after my last incident in the woods, and I put together a little theory. Whoever was out there used something on me to get me to leave. Now, maybe they fucked up and hit me a little too hard, or maybe they really were trying to kill me. I don't know for sure, but I think that whatever was out there decided to spare me. Whatever damage they did, I think they undid it. I think they saved me. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm not. But it's better to imagine that was what happened than any of the alternatives. Whatever their intentions were, it's best not to go looking for them. If I'm right, they don't want to hurt anyone. And if I'm wrong, well, Let's just hope I'm not wrong. I found the deeper I walked into the suicide forest, the fresher the bodies became, until at the heart of the woods, only sacks hung from the branches. Suddenly, a fully formed man burst from one and clutched at the cord around his neck, and then went limp and swayed in silence. I wanted to say welcome to my newest patron, PA Nightmares. Tell me what you think down below. Did you enjoy this story? I really enjoyed it. Makes me never want to follow strange sounds again. If you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you want to hear more, then subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. If you want to hear the audio of this, check out my podcast, Daydreams and Nightmares with 242. If you want something with my avatars on it, check out my merch. If you'd like to join PA and get early access and a few other bonuses, check out my Patreon. But as always, thank you for watching. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.